What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It's my favorite day of the week. We got Mike Ryan.
I'm your favorite day of the week?
You are.
Is that just a coincidence? This is like Picadillo Wednesday. Well, it's not Picadillo Wednesdays at the Money household, but it's your favorite day of the week because I'm here.
I mean, I get to talk about Islas Canarias, other wrestling, music topics I'm passionate about. But yes, it's you also.
Did you see? I had Isla the other day for dinner.
I know.
Did you see the size of that bistec empanizado that I had?
Oh,
did you see that? Dude, I'm telling you, I had a bistec empanizado the size of like from my fingertips to my elbow. And I finished the whole damn thing. It was incredible. Incredible. Man, I love that place.
Would you say the best bistec empanizado in Miami? Don't answer if the wrong answer. We could just talk about something else.
Now, yes. My favorite bistec empanizado place stopped making the bistec empanizado. So now, and that was the first time I actually had that from Isla, and it blew me away.
Versatile, just like my man Pete. Hop in here, Pete.
There we go. I couldn't comment on the bistec empanizado because you were looking over here, Mike. But Mike, I wasn't hopped in yet, so
I'm glad.
Sounds delicious. Though.
I'm glad you followed the rules.
We got a big one today, baby. St. Leo.
Pete, what do you think?
Canes hoops.
You've read the full Scott. Trenton Breeze wrote a detailed scouting report on St. Leo's, their schemes, their proclivity for transition.
I think it's
threes.
St. Leo. I don't think that there's a possessive.
It's not San Leo?
No, I think it's just St. Leo.
You asked me today if I was going to the game. I was like, the exhibition? Man, Pete's about that life.
Oh, no.
Pete's about that life.
I thought Pete was about that life until I see my man Breeze breaking down the transition three tendencies of St. Leo. What's their mascot? The Friars? What are they? Check the Breeze article on CanesInsight.com. If you're looking for an in-depth scouting report on St. Leo before the exhibition game, go to CanesInsight.com. 7 million posts and counting. The absolute best coverage of Miami Hurricanes preseason basketball you will find anywhere on the planet.
You wearing a tighter shirt?
I gained a little bit of weight. They got these new vegan protein bars at Trader Joe's. Unbelievable. They're from like Denmark or something. They're truly excellent. Truly excellent.
It's in the sleeves, though. Take the credit. You're building mass.
Hey, listen, back to work. I'm building up to an interview with Cristobal.
They're the Lions.
The Lions.
I'm not sure where you got Friars from.
Weird start to this week's show. Can we quickly recap the FSU game real quick? We dominated.
You want me to fall asleep, Mike?
No, there's nothing really much to talk about, but I was hopeful for a more embarrassing scoreline because I kind of felt like that was a pretty thorough domination. When your big explosive play is a QB sneak, that pretty much tells you the whole story there. But I do think it was both encouraging and disappointing that Miami didn't take the bait, that their quarterback stayed away from turnovers and played a clean game. That's kind of what the NFL did with Mahomes after he lost Tyreek Hill. They kind of dared him to go downfield, and he often took the bait, and he threw a lot of interceptions, and then they went on a run and won a Super Bowl because he was like, okay, you're going to play too high. I'll go take some of the safer stuff, and you guys don't think that I'll be able to do this, but I will. So that was encouraging, but I will say discouraging was the effectiveness in playing man up on our wide receivers. Now, the wide receivers took also what was available to them. I thought Zay Horton was a really bright spot in that slant play to Zay Horton where he high points the ball and it maybe isn't the most accurate looking pass by design. That seems like it'll be an effective coverage beater, but I think, Pete, it was you that made the point. That's something to keep an eye on when you hopefully make it to Charlotte and play an opponent like Clemson. Virginia Tech did this, dared our wide receivers to make plays. The offense still put up a solid point total, and it was encouraging to see that Damian Martinez continues to grow into this season, and the Miami Hurricanes took what the defense gave them and put in a dominant effort, ended up covering on the line. But there were certain things that I do think that we can learn from and maybe be a little concerned about from that performance, even though it was pretty positive across the board, D-Money.
Yeah, I think anticlimactic's the best way for me to say it. It was, like Pete said, it was quite easy, kind of boring, much like, the German invasion of Yugoslavia, World War II, in terms of the lack of resistance put up by FSU. It would have been more fun to get more emotion out of them. I was watching their post games and depressing. I mean, they expected it. There wasn't a lot of pain from FSU, more of a dull feeling from the FSU fan base. They already know they're terrible. There was a nice article in the Washington Post of just kind of writing in very fancy language about how bad they are at 1-7. Yeah, they're not suffering as much as I'd like. I think they're just already dead is the problem.
Well, that's not that fun. I wanted to really twist the knife. We didn't really do that. I wanted what they did down here 2 years ago, a 45+ point to 3 type of embarrassing final score. We didn't quite get that. That's what I was hoping for anyways. We try to give Cam Ward the Heisman moment, which I thought was a little funny. But for me, the main takeaway, the thing that I'll remember from that game is not just Amy Martinez's run at the end of the end zone, but it was all about Mario Cristobal's post-game press conference where he gave you a little, that definitively. I love that.
Guys, we have our special guest in the waiting room here.
So our special guest is here already?
Yes,
let's get it rolling.
He's here, so I'm gonna hop off here, and then I'm gonna ask.
Does the audience know who our special guest is?
No, we have not announced it. Get your headset ready.
Okay. So. This is really exciting for me personally. I'll wait till our guest hops in the screen because this, for me, is one of the premier voices in all of sports. You hear this person come across your TV speakers, and you already know. It is a big game. We are joined now by Joe Tessitore. And Joe, I shared some time over at ESPN with you briefly when the Levitard show was there. I
remember, Mike.
I'm a huge supporter of yours. I'm so glad that I get to not only see you on college football, one of my favorite things, but now on Monday Night Raw, one of my other favorite things.
Thank you for that.
I knew you'd knock it out the park. How many people come up to you on a daily basis and say a variation of things like, you are looking live, or Baker Mayfield?
Yeah,
do you run into that?
That's a pretty good Joe Tess right there. Based on that introduction, you could either be my next agent or perhaps give lessons to like my wife and daughter to appreciate me a little bit. But man, I'm psyched to be with you guys. What's going on over there?
No, man, just loving life. I was watching Raw this morning, some highlights catching up. And I know we're not going to get into that. We're on college football duty, but I can tell people who are listening haven't been tuning in. The product is absolutely on fire. Joe is killing it.
You've been a fan for a long time?
Oh, this is like a wrestling / college football podcast.
Okay.
So
how far back do you go?
I mean, let's say the match made in heaven, match made in hell, Ultimate Warrior and Hogan together against Middle East forces, which I guess the world hasn't come that far in 40 years.
You're like vintage T-shirt level hardcore. Yeah. You're not at my level of like wearing Bruno Sammartino shirts around my country club in Naples, Florida, but you're close.
There we go. But if you're not tuning in, you want to tune in. $5 billion Netflix deal. So that's why they brought in the big guns like Joe. But I want to ask you.
Man, I'm just a dumb little kid from Schenectady, New York, son of an immigrant trying to get by. You got geniuses over there at that place who know what they're doing. But we all appreciate that you watch. It's awesome.
But let me ask, just college football to me and WWE right now are both ascendant products, right? A lot of change going on in both products and a lot of excitement. To me, they're the top two right now. Are you feeling that energy being inside of those two respective?
I think obviously the sports landscape has changed greatly as the years have gone on. I think with more access and I think with more programming windows that networks want to fill, you see a gravitational pull of eyeballs to where people can, it used to be college football was limited in many ways of what you were getting on a Saturday afternoon or what you're getting in ABC primetime or in certain spots. And now you see where you can watch everything all the time. And you have consumers that are far more educated. Even when I've been calling college football games for obviously well over 20 years. But I found that you have and I'm somebody that grew up in the Northeast, right? But was in love with SEC football, always, and just was a football junkie because there's like a small little pocket of college football junkies in the Northeast, whether it's the Penn State folks, we were the BC crazies that would go and tailgate at every BC game and that, as you can see. But I think what you've seen is you have a more educated college football fan among the mainstream consumers. And it used to be a far more regionalized sport. And with that, you're seeing where people, if there's a great game on, and especially if it's one of the brands, so if it's SEC or Miami, you're going to have the eyeballs. Like, it's automatic. And now you get a Miami team like this, and you get a Miami team that is chunk plays and a Heisman level quarterback and exciting and undefeated and feels like they got the swag again. And yeah, man, it's on fire.
Joe, you had the opportunity to call Miami in week 1. Now, one of the comments when you look at Miami's ranking from other people, which I actually think is justified, is Miami hasn't had that impressive of a schedule. You look through their schedule, and probably their best win is that week 1 game that you called, considering that Florida has figured it out a little bit. You've been on SEC duty. I'm wondering, with your own eyes, given what you saw week 1, where do you think Miami stacks up? Because it is a pretty fair criticism.
Miami can score on anybody in the country. Miami can beat any team in the country because they can outscore any team in the country. And that is a fact. And you're talking to somebody that is, working games at I've had 3 Alabama games. I work LSU games. I work mostly in the SEC, with the exception of the Canes are, a national level program. So I'm going to end up doing Canes games, which I'm thrilled to have my 3rd one of the year. And also I can, of course, sleep at home and drive over Alligator Alley, which is nice. But they can score and beat anybody in the country. They can outscore anybody in the country. We know the limitations of the defensive backfield. We know they've given up chunk plays. They caught a bad injury there. That defensive line is also now getting to the point, as they've come back to full health, where they can wreck people and be destructive and create game-changing, game-altering plays. We saw that for moments against Louisville. But I have great trust in Miami. The schedule is not the kind of schedule where you can sit and make certain arguments in different directions. But the eyeball test, especially with that offense, it very much is. Very much. And that's why I cannot wait to see what happens with the college football playoff. I cannot wait to see where Miami is seated. Listen, you win the SEC, the ACC championship, you're going to be the 3 seed, where you're going to be playing. But I think it's going to be fascinating to see this Miami team with this offense, this level of coaching and confidence and talent and leadership at quarterback and veterans at other places go up against what would be considered a traditional SEC power in the postseason. Because I know for a fact that they can outscore anybody.
Joe, you've been doing this, like you said, for 20 years, doing background, getting in the building with teams. And I imagine at this point, you can kind of get a feel for how things are going on in a program. You've got trained eyes, trained.
Dude, how many conversations you have a week with SID Cam Gorby?
I've had 4 today. And dinner. We had dinner at
he blows up my phone while I'm in the middle of doing broadcast, right? So if you're asking me if I'm informed and do I have a feel, when you got the most power-punching, ass-kicking, on-the-muscle SID in the country, who is force-feeding it down your throat and will gladly hit you over the head to make sure you got your talking points, yeah, I'm informed.
What vibe you're picking up inside the building? Like, what's the sense that you're picking up around, all that juice with Cam and Chris
outside
and
of
everybody else?
State-sanctioned propagandist.
Yeah, right. But listen, it's not propaganda because he knows his stuff so well and he's got such a high football IQ. But he's definitely going to make sure you know it and that you can repeat it. I think I'm picking up a lot of the stuff that when I first was with Mario, and I've been with Mario, obviously, a lot of different steps, but first with him, when he took over this task to bring the Canes back to what he knows them to be, a guy who was part of 2 national championship teams, of the plan he set forth. And listen, I think I did that Florida State game a few years ago where it was just brutal. And to understand this was always going to be about the talent acquisition business with the elite development, with an emphasis on offensive line and then getting the pieces together. Okay, look at what you have right now. You have the talent acquisition. You have the development of the skill set. You have the offensive line that almost everybody in the country would trade for, maybe outside of LSU with the bookend tackles. And you're getting so what do I read in the program? I read we set forth the compass. The GPS was put on this destination, and now we're getting off the exit and we're arriving. Not all the way there yet, but you can see the destination.
Joe, a lot has been made of Cam Ward right now at the position of quarterback, the leading contender along with Dillon Gabriel. And the Heisman Trophy competition this year is one of the better, most competitive competitions in quite some time. If Cam Ward does finish this story, to borrow some WWE.
Boy, you are deep in it. I mean, you are bloodline referencing and everything. Holy cow.
If Cam Ward does finish this story, do you see the voters passing up the opportunity to crown an undefeated player at that position with that brand on his helmet as the Heisman Trophy winner?
Yeah, I think the Heisman Trophy, I used to be part of the broadcast and presentation and track it for ESPN for years and years. I think that has also changed through the years, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays this year. I think the voting for the Heisman Trophy is absolutely atrocious. I think it's absolute garbage. I love the organization, the people that run it, the philanthropy, the tradition, the pageantry, the prestige, all of that. We have to not have 950 voters with an archaic system that's antiquated based on having newspaper editors that were grandfathered in going all the way back to the 1950s. Of the 950 voters, you probably only have 10% that follow the sport closely, work in it week in and week out, understand what they're watching, and are really qualified to properly vote for the Heisman Trophy. So what you end up getting is much like, say, running a turf race. For those of you that handicap and happen to play the ponies a little bit, he who jumps last wins, right? So you're in the race, and then it's always that last jump of conference championship weekend. So Cam, maintain what you're doing. Hurricanes maintain undefeated. We talked about the schedule. They catch a loss. I don't love what could happen the way it's perceived with the Heisman thing. And then finish really, really strong with a compelling, dominating passing stat performance against Clemson with a victory in the ACC championship game. And I think you're right there.
Joe, I got to ask you, talk about Naples, Florida. Every time I'm watching TV and some crazy animal sighting happens in the state of Florida, it's Naples, Florida. So
it's a little east of here where we get into the pythons and the panther reservation and like the alligator alley where, that wasn't a speed bump. But yeah, isn't that the case? We make for really good IG stories over here. Yeah, really good. If you want an early dinner and 36 holes of golf and a good python, you come our way.
So the college football landscape with the transfer portal, are you seeing the parity that it seems to us as fans is taking place?
Absolutely. You're seeing more and more of it. Nick Saban, I was in Nick's office a few years ago when it was really obvious that all these changes were going to happen, whether it was the transfer portal, the eligibility, the instant eligibility, the ability to move schools, and the NIL. And he said, everybody's pointing a finger at us saying, oh, great, the rich are going to get richer. That is not what's happened. The rich are always going to be rich. Alabama, Georgia, Texas, LSU are always going to have the elite top tier talent. What's happening is guys may go to that program and then they look around and they see the realities of playing time, of opportunity, of helping out their pro prospect, and they're going to move along. Plus, you get this money market here where you can cash in and people are going to move along. So because of that, you have middle level programs that can now fix holes quicker in the off season. They don't have to have these issues that stay through a whole nother recruiting cycle. So you get more and more teams in the middle that are better. You get more teams at the bottom that may catch a little bit of lightning, i.e. Vanderbilt's quarterback situation, and you get parity. And you get more teams that are more competitive deeper into the season. You add in a 12-team playoff, and now we're sitting here at the precipice. It will be November this weekend. I want you to really think back in the last 10 years of college football of how many times we were getting to November, and you're sitting there saying, what does this game even mean? Like, we know there's basically these 6 teams to 7 teams that are vying for a 14 playoff, and you got to almost have a goose egg next to your name or one loss and get into one of the big conference championship games. That is not the case anymore. Now we have good quality college football games wherever you look up and down a Saturday afternoon. And all of that put into the boil is the reason why. The transfer portal, the instant eligibility, and the NIL.
Joe, I want to thank you for being so gracious with your time and also so thoughtful with your answers. Really some great stuff there. When I think of Joe Tessitore, there's a couple of words that come to mind. One of them is oddly steakhouses, because when you were doing Monday Night Football, you were always talking about the local steakhouse there. So I'm sure you have a list of your favorites. I'm going to ask you to maybe put together a thoughtful top 3 of Joe Tessitore's favorite steakhouses. Across the globe.
My daughter is a chef at a Michelin star restaurant in New York. And we are like hardcore culturally Italian. Obviously, my family's from Italy. We immigrated to, New York, and she's a Michelin star Italian chef. So Italian is my go-to, but that's typically like a place like hers in New York or at home. When I'm on the road, I'm typically a hardcore steakhouse guy because there's consistency there. And it's like quality of meat gets you quality of meal. Man, I have had so many good steaks through the years when I'm on the road. And, having Jesse Palmer, who's not far away from your studio, as my broadcast partner is super dangerous because he likes to go very hard and eat very big and make sure we're extremely well hydrated while we're on the road, extremely well hydrated. So I would throw a couple out there. Strangely, we did an Oregon game last year. We went to Ringside Steakhouse in Portland, Oregon, which was excellent. But that is not part of my typical rotation. Place here in South Florida, not far from me, the Continental is superb. That's not life on the road, but that's one of my ultimate go-tos. Name a city and I'll tell you my place.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky. I like Magnolia 612 in Louisville, Kentucky. It's excellent. I like Jack Fry's in Louisville, Kentucky for a steak. Very, very good. Also very heavy-handed with the cocktail there. I typically have really good meals in Louisville. I just had a very good meal there at Repeal a couple of weeks ago. I thought the steak was excellent because the steak was really, really good. And I went with a medium rare minus, and they were dead on with it. So really tender on the cut, melted in your mouth. Excellent. Very, very good. Plus, I also like a place that has more than just Campari for their Amaro list. And they did, which made me very happy. They had Chenar, they had a Verna, they had Nonino. So when they made the Mezcal Negroni, it doesn't come out looking like Rudolph's nose. It comes out more brown. Excellent before a steak.
These are some of the most
you guys think like
answers.
You guys think I'm bullshitting right now?
No, absolutely not. Who
not
can think you're bullshitting? Absolutely not. These are incredibly thoughtful answers from Joe Tessitore.
I take that stuff like hyper serious, bro. Like crazy serious.
We can tell. And how you do anything is how you do everything, Joe. I appreciate that.
I'm a huge believer in that. Huge believer. And excuse my whole garb here. I'm just like in the middle of my day, like in my home office, but I didn't know I had to dress up for the show.
Hey, no, Joe, appreciate you. We're looking forward to your call on Saturday.
Are you really? You're not going to be there. You're going to be there, aren't you?
I'm listening to it again. So it'll be. I'm looking forward to your call.
I do that. I did that certainly with the game that you called against Florida. Went back and I watched that.
You went back and you watch it.
Yeah, it was one of my greatest moments of my life. Beating Florida like that.
My oh my, Miami's talented.
Is the U your alma mater? Are you
no? It's a communal thing. As you know it down here.
I know.
Yeah,
it's not only a down here thing, by the way, with the U. What I like about the U is that there's a certain generation that caught a bite of the brand, and it just is their identity. It connects with them. So, like, one of the most hardcore Miami fans I know is like one of my boxing buddies out in LA, Steve Kim.
Oh, our guy.
He's all about it, right? And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I saw Steve this week, a couple weeks ago. The guy's got the gray hair still.
Yeah, what do you think of the gray hair on Kim?
He's got such a youthful energy because, he's single. He's always out and about. He's in good shape. So it kind of makes him a little more mature. It balances him out well. I like the look on Steve.
Joe, I've got one last question for you before we let you go here. I mentioned Steakhouses word association, Baker Mayfield also word association. I'm curious between the worlds of professional wrestling, what you're doing now with WWE and college football, your absolute favorite name to scream into a headset.
Oh my God. I mean, I lose my mind like all the time when there's.
We love that though. We love that about you. I swear to God, you catch me in my house, I'm just turning a corner in my house and I'm saying Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield. Yeah, I do like Baker Mayfield a lot. I don't think I've done a Baker Mayfield. Well, I did like Monday Night Football was my last Baker Mayfield game. I'd have to think about that. Probably the most fun I've had through the years is traveling the world doing a Tyson Fury heavyweight championship fights. Tyson Fury. He cracks me up. I mean, he's off the rails nuts. I mean, he is just bigger than life, biggest personality. And so, calling his fights a lot. In terms of just saying the name, I'd have to give that some thought.
Ivar.
Who? What do you got?
Ivar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, they're back now. So, yeah.
Joe, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys.
We'll be listening.
Keep up the great work. Try to put Cam on Do Not Disturb, will you please? See how far you get.
He's a volume shooter. We love him for it.
He is. He's the absolute best. All right, stop by and say hi at the booth on Saturday, will you?
That we might take you up on that, Joe Tess.
We'll see. By the way, we got a beautiful espresso machine we travel with in the ABC booth. So if you want a spro, we'll get you a nice doppio. We'll get you all jacked up before kickoff.
Joe Tess, a thrill to have a direct conversation with you, sir. Always an admirer, and keep kicking ass because you're killing it on the WWE side. We're so happy when you were announced there, and we're really eagerly anticipating more Miami assignments, and hopefully we can get your voice across a college football playoff appearance for these Miami Hurricanes.
That would be fun, man. Let's take this thing all the way to the Peach Bowl, and let's have a showdown with the SEC. It'll be a blast.
All the way. I may have to DM you for food recommendations too. That was crazy. That was crazy thorough.
Well, I got the whole list working anytime you want, especially if you're taking a trip to Italy. You take a trip to Italy, you hit me. I'll give you maitre d's. I'll give you where to go, what not to order, the whole thing. You hit me if you go over there.
Absolutely. Big
all right, bro.
With Cam
Be well. Have a great one.
I expose you to him some more. Wow, Joe Tessitore, the Joe Tessitore. That was electric.
And electric was the word I was using. We just got back to Pete, and the thrill is gone.
Yeah,
I don't know how I can follow that up. I apologize.
Can you make us a spro? That was
Mescal Negroni, man. That whole thing was
like Rudolph's nose.
Oh my god, that was like a great Ghostface verse.
Dude,
with all the descriptions of the food.
Incredible,
unbelievable.
Thank you for a mutual friend too. Thank yous go around to not just Show Test, but mutual friend Cam Gorby, the aforementioned kick-ass SID. I'm going to try to recover real quick, but I do want to seize on one of the conversation points that I had there with Joe Tess, which is I don't like to annoy Miami Hurricanes fans. I've only done it once really this year. And that was, I think, the Concepcion Restrepo thing. And
some people, the Martinez stuff, some people
look, I was always a Martinez supporter. I'm pro getting the most effective running backs in there. And while you're over here pounding your chest because you wanted to be a politician about it and not really put yourself out there because you're bought and paid for with these storm sessions, I was out there clamoring for a change at RB1, a change that, by the way, happened. And by the way, also got more out of Damian Martinez. So if you want to do your little victory lap while you were sitting on the sidelines on Damian Martinez, you go right ahead, buddy. But I was out here speaking truth into microphones and telling you that there needed to be a new RB1. And guess what? There is. And ipso facto, Damian Martinez is rumbling into the end zone.
Thanks for the plug on Storm Sessions. We got a new episode with Jaleel Bethea just dropped today. I am actually recording with one Damian Martinez tomorrow. And, I'm sure
that's why you've been sitting on the sidelines.
I'm sure sitting on the sideline. I believe when you were trying to not just have him replaced by Fletcher, bench for Jordan Lyle. Play the last couple games.
Well, one of those two things happened. Look, it's not an L on Damian Martinez whatsoever. When the coaching staff takes a bye week and puts in a new RB1, that ain't an L, my friend. And I think credit goes to the player who you said always had this in him. We saw him do it in Oregon State. He started with contributions in the passing game, and now he is finding his footing after maybe the opposing defense gets tenderized a little bit. And by the way, he's a large part of that tenderizing. Don't get it twisted, but I'm really happy for the player. Some of these criticisms, D, are fair. It was absolutely fair to not just watch the games, but also look at the statistical analysis and realize, yes, Damian Martinez, to this point in time, needs to get it going. That is not being unfair to a player. That is reading him as you see him. And thankfully, the player has responded. And you know what? As one of those motivating factors, I don't appreciate your tone. I don't. Look, we got him going.
Derek Huck says shots at X Martinez and now at D Money. Mike needs to be stopped.
By the way, any ethnic similarities there? The streets have been talking about
Concepcion's Latin. Concepcion's Latin. But no, look, Restrepo, that one's fair. Kind of got out of hand. I wonder how many questions you had to filter out with your little town hall that you had with Xavier Restrepo. But here, now that I've set the table, I'm going to run the risk of ticking off Miami fans yet again. And that I think it's a totally valid criticism to hold against this Miami Hurricane team that they haven't really played anybody. Cal hasn't really helped you out. And we all know here, I will help propagandize that Cal is one of the weirder teams in the nation. No one can say they really asserted their will against Cal. However, that win-loss record is not going to help you. You look back at that performance, it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. We can contextualize and explain away bye week, game day, unprecedented atmosphere. Look at everything that they overcame. It's not the greatest looking result there. So I do think it's fair. In fact, if I were a Pitt Panther fan, I'd be looking at the University of Miami trying to wonder what is the disconnect here? Are we just projecting that this team has a better chance if we get into a college football playoff? Because if we're doing it on the teams that we beat and who's been more impressive recently, granted, they also had another close one against Cal that they could have easily lost. I'm struggling to really figure out what's going on with Pitt. And if I boost the argument for Pitt, I kind of have to take some shots at Miami's resume. So do you think that is a justified criticism? Will you follow me into the breach, or will you do what you normally do, which is either shove me back into that breach and laugh from the sideline?
First of all, all that tenderizing talk got me thinking about those steaks. That medium rare minus, holy moly, I'm going to start using that.
A medium rare minus is an alpha move from Joe Tess.
I never heard that. I'm going to start dropping that with tremendous class. My dad just texted me, said, I go to Ringside Steakhouse in Portland. I'm going to go back to eating meat after this conversation. But look, Miami's got the best offense in the country. That is why I think Miami is ranked where they are. Like Joe Tess said, Miami can score on anybody. So I think if you're just looking at the power rankings of the team, if you look at a Pitt, which I'm picking later on in the picks.
Okay.
What are you hanging your hat on to say they are dominant in this phase? I think with Miami, you're talking about a truly dominant offense that you can hang your hat on and say this is the best in the country, especially now they're running the ball.
But can you put in perspective their offensive dominance by holding up their opponents? And I understand you play who you play, but they haven't really caught a break. The teams that they've beaten have kind of slipped up either before they met up with Miami or after. Virginia Tech does look a little bit better. That's one of the few instances. Are you all right, Pete? God bless you,
good.
Sir.
Yes. I didn't sneeze.
Hop in here because
I've been hopped in. I've just been.
I think that
waiting in the shadows, waiting for my time.
Well, I would have loved you on the Damian Martinez talk, but again, I look at the sidelines and I see two guys standing there. But it's okay. I'll be guy run that runs into the breach here, gets the engagement going. That's cool if that's what you want my role to be. But I do think that it's a fair criticism of Miami. You and I seem to have a consensus there. I also agree. Miami can score on anybody, but they haven't had the opportunity to score on anybody. They've taken on some good defenses, some really skilled defenses, and I would lump FSU in there in that class. But if I'm Joe Sports fan or if I'm AP voter out of Wyoming that's been golfing all day, I could hold this against the University of Miami.
No, that's fair. Pete, Pete left our group chat because the conversation wasn't even handed enough for him. He only wants right down the middle sports talk. So, Pete, I know you got a lot of takes.
It's just utopian society.
There are two Petes. There are two Petes.
I like to bring some truth bombs sometimes, and
Pete tries to get me going.
Sometimes those truth bombs aren't best served to the public as well. You need to go into groups of people
in the group chat today, Pete, you would have been proud of me. I was like, what can we fundraise, crowdsource Tyler Barron to go to Kennard Lang's DN school so we can help him finish some of these sacks? Because I do think that's another valid criticism, because that's been another one of my frustrations here. Can we finish some sacks?
Yeah. Well, East-West Shrine Game player of the week, defensive player of the week, Tyler Barron. So maybe on a different week that criticism may have been.
There are two Petes. But there are two Petes.
Well, you see the tight sweater he's wearing today. This is tight sweater.
You guys.
This is little Lululemon.
This dude's trying to curry favor with the administration and the players with his storm sessions out now, and that dude over there is trying to curry favor with you, the adoring public. Meanwhile, I'm over here being villain, just regurgitating what they're telling me on the side, folks. I'm surrounded by politicians.
Listen, I'm just excited for Coach L revenge season, baby. He's out for blood this year. He's out for blood.
Oh, no, that St. Leo, right? Not Leo's.
Leo.
No possessor.
Leo University.
You guys St. Leo Lions. They don't know what's coming to him.
Snakes.
The ghost of Navon Donaldson says Mike looking great in the George Baez.
That's actually really funny. That's one of my favorite chronics.
So the whole last show, Mike was talking about his hair for about 20 minutes, talking about how expensive his hair was. He got like about $40 in donations to get a haircut. He said it wasn't enough because he's got these high-end haircuts. And then he gets another haircut and comes in here with a hat. So
for enough about you guys, man. My man D Huck says one thing Mike was right about with Pete's eyes. In person, they're sensational. Dude, even my lady friend agreed.
I fall into them sometimes. Can't help it. Pete, it was good to have you at Hard Rock Stadium, and I appreciated your perspective because I do think you see the game pretty well. You have a pretty good network of talent scout evaluators over there, so I always appreciate your prism on these things. Before I get myself into a problem with Tyler Berenhive, and I do think that he's been Miami's most consistent defensive player, certainly most consistent pass rusher. But I do think if we are nitpicking, and when you're undefeated, you're nitpicking, folks. But I do think that Miami has struggled, especially in recent weeks, with finishing these plays. How does one improve on that?
I mean, look, I don't know if it's necessarily a physical thing, or even, I don't even want to call it a mental thing, but some motor is a lot of times what's talked about, which it's hard to call it a motor thing with Barron in particular.
Because he looks electric on the field. Like, he gets to the spot and you need a motor to get to the spot.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's almost like having ball skills in a sense, right? Like, you see some of these defensive backs who are always in the right place at the right time. And it's hard to say, oh, well, you know, they don't have the athletic ability to make the play. They have it, but you got to just go make a play on the ball, right? You can get yourself in the position, but if you don't finish the play, and it's something similar like that, you know, when it comes to defensive linemen finishing plays, they've been there a ton, right? And I think that's why you see Miami's leading the country in pressures right now, correct? From what I saw the other day, right? From PFF. So it's not like they don't have the dudes up front to actually create the pressure, but sometimes it's a lack of focus, you know, just a mental lapse, so to speak. But no, I mean, it's something that would take the defense to the next level. I mean, they've been there plenty of times and just haven't come up with the play, but I still think the disruption has been, you know, top of the line.
Well, let me throw a theory out with Barron. So look, like you said, Miami's number one in pressure rate. You look at the sack percentage, 22nd. So there's a disconnect there between the number one pressure team and 22nd.
I'm only highlighting it because I thought that the QB sneak was indicative of what we'd seen in recent weeks, which is the plays should be dead when our pass rushers get home. And dating back to Virginia Tech, we've really struggled with finishing these. We've applied the appropriate amount of pressure. These should be big, game-changing type plays. Sometimes Miami comes up with them, but the big bring the house down type of strip sack fumble, it hasn't really been there this season for Miami, despite the consistent pressure.
I think Ruben Bain's going to make a big difference here. So, you know, I think there is some athletic component to this, and people always focus on like the twitch and the explosiveness, but there's a component of bending your knees and exploding through your hips. When you get right there to the quarterback, some guys that are a little more top heavy kind of bend there. They're the guys that are like bulldogging the quarterback down. You know, they're not the guys that are actually making form tackles through the quarterback. I think that impacts somebody who gets a lot of pressure, but is maybe a little high when they come in, because that's just how their athleticism is. Very twitchy, very explosive, but they're not the benders and the, you know, exploding through type tacklers, versus the guys that are just, they have the knack for finishing, getting the quarterback on the ground because they can change directions, they can bend their knees, and they can tackle. Ruben Bain, to me, is a finisher. I think he's had a sack every game since he's come back. So what I'm looking for Ruben Bain is potentially one of those 2-3 sack games where it just goes insane.
Yeah,
that's going to happen, I think, in the next couple of weeks.
There just hasn't been the huge game-changing turnover type of plays from this defense, and you're going to kind of need those, because if, as we know, the defense has struggled, especially giving up big explosive plays, as we throw around, well, maybe we played a little bit more conservatively. Maybe you choose better angles. Maybe you rely on your offense, play a bit more complementary football. For you to play complementary football and be an effective bend but don't break defense, timely turnovers are a key component of that. That really hasn't happened here. Big 12-loss type plays, that's what's lacking from this defense. And again, it's a nitpick, and hopefully Miami can ascend to the mean. Their pressure rate would lead you to believe that they're going to ascend to the mean at the right time. But I do see the comments and saying, so no flowers today. I do feel like I gave Zay Horton appropriate amounts of respect, but I do want to applaud once again Miami's development. Damian Martinez, even though he comes in highly touted, that is a product of Miami's development. He's getting used to the system. Miami's getting used to his skill set, and now he's starting to flourish after adjusting the snap count a little bit. But I think Horton, Restrepo, Cam Ward, if you look at how touted or the lack of fanfare that these players entered this program with. Well, Cam Ward entered the program with a great amount of fanfare, but when they entered college, famously Incarnate Word being the only offer for Cam Ward, I do think that even though he came in with like a day 3 NFL grade, you can still credit this coaching staff for the development of certain players. Who's next in terms of someone that the Miami coaching staff is feeling good about right now in practice that we may see pop off? You've been really good with this stuff. You've been really plugged in. And usually when you highlight a player, they end up popping off in the next game. So I'm kind of trying to will this into existence, D. Who's next on our radar?
So first of all, to your point, which I thought was a very good one about the takeaways, Duke #1 in Power 4 in takeaways this year, 2.7 a game against FBS competition. James Madison's first overall, but Duke #1 in Power 4. Miami, you got to scroll down a bit, 83rd. Not where you want to be in terms of takeaways, especially when you have a good pass rush. Not as good as maybe it could be, but #1 in pressure rate, 22nd in sack percentage. You're still good up front in terms of getting pressure. You got to get more takeaways than that. So I agree with you, Mike.
I think the numbers will work out, though. If the pressure is there, you got to believe the turnovers and the big plays, the game-changing plays that we're hoping for will come eventually.
Yeah, you want Duke obviously to go down this week and not have to take advantage of any turnovers from Cam Ward. I agree. You said it earlier. Cam Ward, very disciplined performance, didn't take the bait. Want that to continue against a team that's really built to cause pressure and force mistakes. And then Miami, of course, in this particular game, taking the ball away.
It's not sexy, but that's the path to actually making noise in the college football playoff.
Yeah, and then if you're not a dominant Georgia type defense and you have the best offense in the country or top 3 offense in the country, turnovers, sacks, that is how you win the game. Red zone defense, because you don't have to dominate. You get a turnover, you kill a couple drives with a sack or a holding or a timely pressure. You turn a 7 into 3 in the red zone. That's how you win when you have a dominant offense. It does not have to be, a 10-point defensive performance. You can just kill a couple drives, keep scoring, and get some separation on that. But in terms of the question you asked, guys to watch for breakout, I'm looking at the freshmen, JoJo Trader, Nykar. Both those guys are killing it in practice. You do have 4 very good receivers, which is why I think you haven't seen those guys. Nothing to do with what they're doing. But, man, when you have Isaiah Horton doing what he does, Restrepo, the best receiver in the ACC, Jacoby George, and Sam Brown, these are 4th, 5th-year players that have goals to be in the NFL and are playing well, not as well as I know they want to, but they're still, you got to factor them in. That's what's keeping JoJo and Nykar back, but those guys are ready to rock. Armando Blunt, he's gotten a little bit of time here and there, but I would watch for Armando Blunt, only 17 years old, to really take a step and do something here in the next few weeks.
You're such a great resource for this. This Miami Hurricanes team has had a fair amount of adversity off the field, a lot of tragic instances this season with parents and relatives. What are you hearing from that locker room and how this family around this has rallied around some of these players? Because Mark Fletcher is one of the unquestioned leaders of this team, and I'm wondering what kind of support system he has there.
Yeah, leader, one of those well-liked guys, for fans, players, community.
Wise beyond his years.
Great character, great energy. So he's like the guy, beyond what happened. So obviously when this happens, people really rally around him quite a bit. The whole team, the services, I'm not sure, Pete might know when the services are, but Cristobal said the whole team was going to the service.
I think it is either today or tomorrow.
Right. So obviously that's going to be a major presence there. And look, Fletcher and Martinez are super tight. So if you go back and watch on Martinez's long run, you can see this in the cinematic recap, which, the football creative department is just killing it across the board.
Those are great.
And the Heisman video they made for Cam Ward. I don't think they're all the same people.
Dude, how about the chills on Restore Order to the State? There is so many great things coming out of that department right now. But I wanted to highlight Mark Fletcher because a player is certainly one that we rate and one that we have respect for, but also to pass along our respects to the player. It's not the only player touched by tragedy. It's kind of an odd year for that. These are things, this seems to be a really tight-knit team. The players having a players-only meeting after a win before the bye week to make sure, hey, make sure your responsibility here, don't get into anything bad. This seems to be a really special culture that Mario Cristobal has built. And it was one that he really struggled with his first 2 years. There were guys that weren't his guys, didn't really fit his culture. Now that we're in year 3 of his program and he's got the results to back it up, we have full indoctrination from the Heck building on down to the players. People are bought in, and you're seeing that really work to Miami's advantage.
No, I mean, the play that symbolizes it is go back and watch that cinematic recap and watch the Damian Martinez run where he looks like he's tackled, breaks off, goes down the sideline, basically punches Earl Little in the face. You know, you see Mark Fletcher running down the sideline, jumping up and down. I mean, you could just see it right there watching the replay because he stands out above everybody else because he's so big and he's so excited. So right there, you see the physicality, of course, with Martinez, the extra effort with the offensive line and Martinez to go down the field, the finish and the toughness, and just kind of, I mean, just like Fletcher or Martinez punched this guy in the face more so than a stiff arm. It was like kind of like Cristobal slamming the podium, you know, just that disrespect for FSU's presence. And then Fletcher running down with a very, obviously it's a tough week for him, beyond tough week for him, still having that excitement and energy for his teammate to succeed, not even his own touchdown. So that play, that clip, again, Football Creative killed it with that whole video. That to me told me a lot about what this team's about.
Pete, what are you looking forward to this weekend against Duke? This is one that a lot of people circled on their calendar because it's Manny Diaz's return. I don't know how the heck they lost that game against SMU. I watched it, and I'm still really confused. But he recently had quotes saying he was grateful for his time in Miami. He's moved past it. Mario Cristobal has taken this season and years prior, he makes no secret that he wasn't a huge fan of what Manny Diaz left him. There does seem to be a weird animosity. You know, I'm accused of hating on Restrepo and Martinez. We got the two Cuban ACC head coaches, and there seems to be a simmering beef here. What will we see on the field? Are you looking forward to this handshake between the two coaches, Pete?
Well, listen, a handshake requires two hands to firmly, you know, meet at the point. And I have a feeling that there's going to be one guy who goes in there a little hard, as you're kind of alluding to.
They don't like each other. Yeah, that's fair. It doesn't.
Listen,
it doesn't really seem like they know each other.
The guy replacing you at your job that you probably feel like you didn't have the resources that the guy who's here currently has, and probably feels like you could do something similar if you had the resources. But there is a reason the resources weren't given to you in the first place, in my opinion. But whole other discussion for another day. What am I looking for this week? With as much as the defense has struggled, right, against offenses that we're not calling them the most explosive offenses in the country, but I think they all had some weapons that other teams would say are legitimate threats, right? You have some 3 weeks in a row there where you really struggle defensively. Last week against a bad offense, the defense comes to play. This week against a really bad offense, once again, the defense needs to do something similar to what they did last week and just give them absolutely no hope that they can be in this game, right? Because I expect, look, Duke will throw some things at Miami defensively here, as we expect Manny to do, and blitz from weird angles and probably send too many guys, even though I don't know if that's the solution against this Miami offense, as we have seen at times this year when teams have gone after Cam Ward. But to me, the defense, again, bad offense, but you have to come to play again and hold them to, I think, 20 points or less, 3 scores or less. Because is it making a statement that you're one of the best defenses in the country? No, but you're stabilizing the situation. And then you can now say, okay, 2 solid weeks in a row defensively. We did what we were supposed to do against an offense that shouldn't pose much of a threat to us, right? And you now have 3 games after that to finish the season off, and you have some real momentum defensively going into it. So I think the defense is really what I'm watching this week. And again, people won't give them credit for, they'll say this is what you're supposed to do. And yes, I agree that it is what you're supposed to do, but they've got to do it because they've made it easy for teams at other points during this season.
Yeah, Malik Murphy, this is a guy a lot of people wanted for the Canes when he was a backup for Texas. I think we came out pretty good on that deal. But 58% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 6.4 yards per attempt, which is on the very low side. He does have a lot of physical talent. He's athletic. He's big. He has a strong arm. He's at Duke, so I'm assuming he's a pretty smart guy. Has rushing ability, but he hasn't really rushed for a ton of yards for Duke. You can't let him be the Kyron Drones, Fernando Mendoza, where they had the best game of their season against the University of Miami. This cannot be his breakout game. You got to get some sacks against him. He's only been sacked 9 times, which is less than Cam Ward this season. Hasn't passed as much, but you want to get that number up with Ruben Bain, Tyler Barron, and the rest of Miami's pass rush, because you can't. This guy's enough ability. Duke usually, aside from they've had a couple good quarterbacks actually with Leonard and what's the guy?
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones, yeah.
But a lot of times they have guys that just don't have the ability. This guy's got ability if he gets going. He has physical tools. That's why he was at Texas. You just can't let him bring his A game, because his A game actually is pretty good. He's just usually on a C or D game. That's where you got to be.
Have the uniforms been announced? I happen to know what the uniforms are. I'm not going to scoop the University of Miami.
See. By the way, Dean, you can't forget the Duke QB GOAT, Thad Lewis, Miami.
Oh, that's true. Highly, right?
HMO, yeah. Let me see. I don't think they've been announced here. We've had a lot of speculation.
He's got the plug.
I know what it is. I'm not gonna scoop the school, but
can you confirm that it's because X said it earlier this week on our show that it would be a unique combination?
It is. It's monochromatic.
Do you approve?
Do I have? Yeah, I know what it is.
I'm not asking what it is. You don't say what it is. I'm just asking, do you approve?
Do I have proof? Yes, I have sources.
No, do you approve of what it is? Like, do you like the look?
Approve.
Oh, yeah, proof of concept. I don't think we've worn.
No. Do you approve?
Oh,
do you like
how
it looks?
I thought he was asking if I approve. I'm like, you don't think I'm plugged in, dog? Like,
no. I'm saying, do you like how it looks?
Do I approve? Yes. Are there other uniform combos that we'd have that maybe would contrast a little bit better, depending on what Duke wears? I don't know if Duke's announced. If Duke wears, say, a darker pant, that might provide something, but it's not. It'll look nice. It'll look nice. I don't know when's the last time we've gone full monochromatic on this look. So take that for what it's worth. But I know that the black uniforms, if I could once again revisit the FSU, I think that was probably our strongest all black look out of all the variants. And maybe I'm doing the thing that we won in them, but I really loved it, especially when the light caught the piping a little bit. They had kind of like that reflective material on it. If I wanted to buy one of those jerseys, where should I go?
Miami Hurricane Team Store.com. Pete, pull it up, MiamiHTS.com, or go to the brick and mortar right there next to the Thesis Hotel on US 1, South Dixie Highway, in front of the school. The absolute best. They got the state champion shirt. They got a ton of basketball stuff, which is basketball season. If you're going to see that epic clash with St. Leo, you want to get the gear. Stop in the store and go over. Use promo code INSIGHT20. You get 20% off. Look at that state champion.
State champions. That shirt is a beautiful color. It is abundantly clear that in the comments section, some of you don't know what monochromatic means. So
there we got. Look at that. That was. Look at the modeling. Look at the modeling of these guys. JoJo Trader. He's a natural. What can you say?
Big catch last week.
I think it's coming for JoJo Trader. I think that was the beginning. You saw them go to him against Cal. And then now this last game gets one. I think you're going to see more and more from JoJo Trader as the weeks go on. And you play some lighter teams. Duke's defense is probably the best defense left on the schedule. But
regular season.
Yeah, the regular season. It's on paper. It's a lighter road. The teams that really have the talent upside to hurt you are mostly gone. Although, look, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, they can stay tight.
Actually, can we do the pick segment here?
Yeah,
because
I was actually going to suggest that we're
because I actually have a take based on one of his picks. He said he wanted to make a Pittsburgh pick.
Yep.
And I'm very curious as to what's happening here. Joe Tessitore said matter-of-factly when he joined us earlier on the show. If you're late arriving, go back to the beginning of this episode.
JoJo Tessitore, Trader.
Joe Tess had an unbelievable appearance on this show. But I'm actually stealing a take from Jess Montana from the Lebitard show. As Joe Tess said matter-of-factly, we know the ACC champion is going to be number 3. We're all resigned to the fact that Big Ten, SEC, that's going to be 1 and 2, which may or may not be just. We'll see how it plays out at the end of the year. There's a huge matchup inside the ACC. 2 ranked teams. SMU survived against this Duke team and keeps their Charlotte dream alive. Pitt was thoroughly dominant on a standalone game on ESPN Maine. Why is this getting buried on ACC Network?
We love the ACC Network, by the way.
I love the ACC Network in that it's a revenue generator, but I don't think that this is a game that should be put on ACC Network. This should be a game that's on ESPN proper, perhaps get network attention. It's not even within consideration for College Game Day to go to. How committed are the media partners to actually making this a thing? Because I guarantee you, This is a bigger game than Alabama-Missouri was last week, and that was a CFP eliminator. This is also potentially a CFP eliminator, though Pitt can actually survive a loss because their resume is such inside the ACC. They still have a path to Charlotte. But I'm really confused as to why this is being buried, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to see how these – I wish, we'll see in the 12-game playoff. We don't have the old bowl system. In the old bowl system, I'm curious to see how the ACC teams would do and these SEC teams would do, because I got to say, we saw Florida, and Florida looked like bottom-tier ACC team when we played them. They go into SEC play, and they don't look outmatched at all. I mean, they were competitive, highly competitive with Tennessee, probably could have won that game.
Billy Napier is doing a phenomenal job in Gainesville. We must say every week. I've just been blown away by his prowess on the sidelines. I mean, he's phenomenal.
He's had a bye week to prepare for this Georgia opponent, and I am curious to see how this goes against Georgia, because now we oddly rooting for Florida because it'll just make Miami look better. No, let me correct myself. There is never a scenario in which Miami is rooting for Florida. It is what it is, I guess, when it comes to Miami's schedule. If they run the table, make it to Charlotte, they can survive a loss in the ACC championship game and get in the CFP. But I think it's becoming more and more clear that if Miami drops a dumb one, and that's one of the curses this team has to break. They dropped the Black Uni curse. They dropped the bye week curse. Now they got to avoid dropping the dumb one. That's how you know Miami's really turned the corner here. If they drop a dumb one, I'm really worried about their chances in the CFP. If they don't win that, certainly they're out if they don't win in Charlotte. So right now you got to keep your margin of error where it is presently and run this table.
Yeah, and look, we control our destiny. We talk about rankings all we want. You're going to get Clemson with a chance to win the ACC most likely. There are some teams in the mix, but I think Clemson is the favorite to play Miami.
I am worried about that Blacksburg game, though. And this one's going to be a little tricky, too. That's a pretty big number, and I see here on your picks, you think it's going to be a bit of a score fest.
Yeah, so let's just get into it because we've been kind of dancing around it. So Clemson, Louisville, I'm a big believer in the Louisville offense. I've been saying it. Shucks, my guy. Even when they were down against Boston College, I knew they'd come back, at least make it competitive just because their offense is too good, too explosive, too veteran at the quarterback position. I think their quarterback's there. I think their play caller's there. They have explosive guys. Ja'Cory Brooks. If Xavier Restrepo's not the best receiver in the ACC, which he is, number 2, you have to go to Ja'Cory Brooks from Miami, Florida, Booker T. Washington before going to IMG. So elite receiver, you got an explosive running back. You got a quarterback who's, to me, just as good as Klubnik, if not better. You think in my opinion, I think Shuck is as good as at least in college, as like a Carson Beck or a Quinn Ewers. I think if you put Shuck on those teams, you wouldn't even know there's a difference. That's how highly I feel about his game at the college level. So Louisville's got all those pieces. Clemson has a very, very explosive offense. They've improved their offensive line since we played them last. Their speed at receiver, probably the 2 things that doomed them when we beat them last year. The offensive line just not being up to par and being too slow a receiver. They have juiced up both of those with offseason additions. Freshmen added at the wide receiver position. New coach Matt Luke on the offensive line. So their offense is good. Louisville's offense is good. I see this either being a Clemson blowout where Louisville scores a little bit of late and boost up that over, or just a true shootout where both teams put up 38.
I do want to interrupt your picks for a moment because I saw Ghost of Navon Donaldson mention it in the comments. I happen to know this news to be true, so I wanted to make sure it was out there already.
It's out, yeah.
It is indeed confirmed. That's Sunday night before Labor Day. Miami is opening their season against Notre Dame. Miami has an additional home game next season, so be on the lookout for that when it comes to ticket prices. Not many road trips for Miami next year, but that is a
they're going to Gainesville again.
That is a rockin' start for Miami to start the season against Notre Dame. Catholics versus convicts Sunday night at the Rock. It's going to feel like one of those kickoff classic games, even though it is a proper home game, as Miami opens up their centennial season in one of the best ways imaginable. So that's really exciting news. Let's get that Rock looking like it did in 2017 for that game. Give them nightmares.
You get Joe Tess on that call. I love that whole. That news is great. I did not know that.
Didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought there, but I wanted to confirm the breaking news that we had during our show, as we were enamored with Joe Tess's medium rare minus steaks.
So that'd be a hell of a game. Talked about Pitt versus SMU. Pitt has more of an identity on the defensive end than SMU. SMU has some pass rushers, but to me, seeing those Lashley offenses, they're very dynamic. He actually had success against Narduzzi when he was here. From what I recall, I know Van Dyke.
That was a big Van Dyke game.
Had a really good.
That was
game.
a ranked Pitt.
That was the
right?
Pickett against Pickett, right?
Yeah. So maybe he has the answer for Narduzzi. I just think toughness from top to bottom. This team has it for Pitt. They have more speed on offense than they've ever had. They're more modern on offense than they've ever been. They got a quarterback who can play. I don't know how much resistance he's going to get from SMU. So I like Pitt there to just control the game. And this is, we're getting to November here. So this is going to be Pitt time of the year. I like Pitt, which is a more experienced team with a more tougher identity than SMU. +7's too much. We talked about Florida game. Georgia, to me, horrible matchup for Florida because of the defensive personnel. That's going to really expose Florida's inability to separate with their receivers, inability to block. Georgia with their defensive line and defensive backs are just too talented in my view for this matchup. It's going to be tough to block those guys for Florida. They are bad. They can't block anybody. They're dealing with these guys. I just see this as something, like a 42 to 20 type game here. Maybe not even 20. Maybe maybe it might look like our score.
I hope not. All we really have to boost our resume, if we ever get into at-large territory, is transitive property with Florida, because that was a really dominant performance. So I got lose the games, keep them close.
It is interesting. This is a 16.5-point spread, and we know what Miami beat them by. So Vegas thinks that Georgia is, just about 3 scores better than them right now. So and a lot goes into it, but that is an interesting, thing to note. I do think that Florida's gotten better as the year's gone on, and I don't think that Billy Napier is a bad tactical coach. I really don't, even though he's had egg on his face. Look, sometimes schematically you miss the mark. His problem is talent acquisition, and it continues to be a problem, and he ain't alone in the state when it comes to that issue. He'll probably be able to get another chance. We've seen Manny Diaz wash off his bad experience with Miami, prove himself at a bigger school, back as a coordinator. Maybe that's a path for Billy Napier, but I do hope that Billy Napier can keep it within the numbers. So I'll be actively rooting against this bet while hoping that the Georgia Bulldogs come out on the winning side, because we don't want the Gators to win, actually.
Oh, here's one here. What's your knowledge of San Diego State?
San Diego State, I think the market is a little inflated when it comes to Boise State. I thought the number was right when it came to UNLV, but it seems as though the public really likes Genty, understandably so. But Genty is a running back. There are only so many ways that he can impact the game. You look to last year, this was a really close game. This was a 3-point game. San Diego State, they're not a bad team. They still have a shot to win this conference. This is a big conference game in there. Now, they don't have CFP chances the way that Boise State does. They don't have the fanfare either. But that is a big number. That for a difficult top-of-the-line conference game like that, I just think it's too many points. I'm using last year's predictive analysis a little bit here. I like what I saw from San Diego State against a Pac-12 opponent, and that's so weird to say, in Washington State. But if they could keep it close against Washington State, I don't think the gulf is such between Boise and Washington that they can't keep it close there. I think this is an inflated number because of the Heisman candidate, and let's seize on it because, again, worst-case scenario, that is a pretty hefty backdoor that you can back into, especially at 23.5. That's nice. More than 3 touchdowns, we'll take it. Auburn, I think, has turned a corner, and I've been wrong on Auburn this year. I don't think ultimately this Hugh Freeze thing is going to work, but you had a big emotional game that Vanderbilt fell just short in. They've been kind of all over the place. They tend to follow up good performances with bad performances this year. There have been some really puzzling efforts, and you look at this line and you're trying to figure out, well, why is Vanderbilt a 7-point dog at Auburn? I think the odds makers are already telling you that this game, there's something in the water there. I don't think this game is going to be nearly as close as the spread suggests. I do like Auburn here by more than 2 touchdowns, so we're going to lay the 7.
Real on that one, Pavia revenge game. I say Pavia revenge game. They're getting revenge on Pavia because New Mexico State last year 31-10 over the Auburn Tigers. Pavia went 19 for 28, 201 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ran for 30.
He's a gamer, and I will say, out of all the games that I'm picking, this is the one that you should be really scrutinizing because Hugh Freeze has been really difficult to predict. This is a really good spot for Auburn right here. You catch them after that Texas game, a little beat up. If they don't get this one, maybe you do fire up the Fire Hugh Freeze message board banter on whatever the Auburn version of CanesInSight is. Navy, what a disappointing performance last week from Navy. There was a pathway there. They couldn't complete just basic plays. If you watch that game, muffing a punt after they get a stop, 14-point swing after they get a stop, not being able to handle a simple toss to the outside. When has Navy not been able to handle a toss? Horvath was injured. I probably didn't pay too much, not enough attention was paid to that Horvath injury because it seemed to really affect his ability to do the simple things. Now, hopefully he's gotten a little bit more healthy, but really this is not just backing Navy, who I think has a really good offense, really fun to watch, even when they're not executing. Drew Cronick, the offensive coordinator, does so many creative things with motion. It's pretty wild to see. I'm a big fan of watching this team play. I just would like to see them execute. I think they'll be able to execute against a Rice team that actually spent a lot of money this year in talent acquisition, and they fired their head coach because it wasn't working out. I don't think this is one of those situations where they get a bounce because they hated their coach so much. Navy's going to want to be able to respond. Those are guys that are pretty mature athletes. I always like betting on a military academy to do the things necessary to win a game and bounce back and show signs of maturity. This is a spot for that. And I'm a huge fan of Drew Cronick in that offense. I think they roll the game against Rice. And finally, Nebraska, we're fading UCLA here. Nebraska put in a good performance against Ohio State. Reason to get excited for a crowd that I think is one of the better crowds in college football. 6.5. I think they can win that game by a touchdown. I just don't like UCLA at all this year. And they're traveling. It's the middle of the country, not too bad. But still, we think the home crowd and the young quarterback, the freshman in Raiola, that's getting better week after week. That was impressive, being able to hang with Ohio State there. I like Nebraska here against UCLA.
Yes, this feels like a Raiola feel-good game at home. I see on that. The only one I didn't get to here, Ohio State over Penn State. I've been the biggest James Franklin fan on the planet, so I thought I was going to pick in Penn State all season. The quarterback injury, the uncertainty there gives me pause. Ohio State, 2 poor performances or disappointing performances, let's call it. Maybe a poor performance last week. And I think there's more meat on the bone with that offense. They are suffering from some injuries at left tackle, which is something to watch because when you get to your third string left tackle, it can get dicey. We saw Alabama against USF, and we were scouting USF for that game. USF was taking Alabama to the cleaners because of the lack of depth of tackle. Not many teams can put a backup tackle and have success. Of course, one of those teams is your Miami Hurricanes with Markel Bell. But I just think if the external stuff I don't love for Penn State, between the injury, the way Ohio State's got that little chip on the shoulder heading into the game, I just don't like how it's building up to a game. The talent-wise is pretty close to even, maybe edge to Ohio State.
The reaction to Ryan Day has been curious because he's one of the best coaches in the nation when it comes to winning percentage, and Ohio State's comparing him to ghosts that are no longer in that program. You're perennially in the college football playoff. You're still getting high-end recruits. I'm not saying that the bottom won't fall out eventually, but I don't think it's fallen out. But we've worked ourselves up into a frenzy that people think that James Franklin can just walk into a top 5 matchup and win it. That's crazy town. James Franklin has a reputation that precedes him. So I'm going to back Ohio State here. I just think that they're the better team. I think that this is an overreactionary line. We're forgetting about the whole book on James Franklin. And also, Penn State's quarterback is injured. Aller, I think, is a good player. He's battling through injuries. I think he'll be able to go, but I'm going to trust the product that has played in big games like this year in and year out. And every time James Franklin and Penn State have you on the precipice of believing, they always find a way to let you down. So I'm going to keep fading them in this spot. I'm backing you here on this Ohio State bet. I really like it.
Yeah, you got Jason Williams here, by the way, comment. The way we played against FSU's front has been nervous about Clemson and the teams we see in the playoffs. Yeah, both the way that their defensive backs played for FSU and then the front. Clemson's got both of those things. So I do see a concern there. If Clemson will stop the run better than FSU as well. Clemson's just a really balanced team. Hard to find a true flaw. My big concern with Clemson is when you watch the game last year, we completely dominated them up front. Inez Cooper had a highlight reel in that game. So did Francis Malinois. That was like their best game as far as moving guys off the ball. We were able to run the ball, control the game with Emory Williams at quarterback, and then defensively, Ruben Bain tossing guys out the club, all that kind of stuff. I think this is an improved Clemson team up front, especially on the offensive line, and the receiver speed with the 5 stars that they've added is scary. They're making a lot of big plays against bad competition, but our secondary has allowed worse teams to make explosive plays. These guys have speed now. Clemson had a period there from being a great wide receiver school to really struggling to separate it all. I think they're getting back towards where they traditionally are. I got to say, I'm impressed with what Dabo has done. Got a lot of criticism first game because of the transfer portal comments. They said more of the same. when Georgia pounded him. He's just he's a relic. But this is starting to look a little like Clemson.
Well, we'll get to see in the next 2 weeks here because they're playing Louisville and then Virginia Tech, 2 teams that were in 1-score games against Miami. So we'll have the transitive property work in there, and we get to try to predict this, what feels like a certain ACC championship. And we should learn from history. Just because they did away with a Coastal doesn't mean that the entire conference isn't capable of becoming the Coastal. If there's one thing that we should have learned in our 20 years in this conference is don't just take what the chalk is telling you when it comes to this ACC matchup. ACC has proven us over the years that there are twists and turns in it. And I would say what's going to happen in Dallas between SMU and Pitt is going to be hugely influential to what goes on in Charlotte too. I'm not one of those people that is just resigned to Miami Clemson. That is a difficult game at Blacksburg that Cade Klubnik has to go into that hostile atmosphere and prove that all the criticisms that are valid, by the way, about him not being able to really perform on the road can fall by the wayside. He needs to put in a good performance for that to happen. He's got some stuff to prove there. So I'm not taking Clemson in that ACC championship for granted, nor am I taking Miami for granted, because while they have put a lot of criticisms to bed this year, the dumb one looms. And this Saturday, they're favored by 20.5 against their former head coach. That would be a really dumb one.
A lot of Ryan Day hate, by the way, in the comments, Mike.
Yeah, I understand why people don't like him, especially following up Urban with such a cult of personality. And Ryan Day doesn't necessarily inspire confidence, in part because Ryan Day doesn't want to be there either. Ryan Day wants to get back to the NFL. It's no secret from all the agent contacts that I've had. He just needs a super uber successful season in college to be able to finesse his way into the pros. If he had his druthers, he'd be in the NFL right now. I get it, but we've seen programs make this mistake. We're guilty of it. Get this coach out of there, this bum. And then 20 years later, we're like, man, how good did we have it with Mark Richt? I'm just saying, there are things that happen with prestige programs that you start measuring them against a guy that won at an unprecedented clip for that program, and you want to push a guy out with that type of winning percentage. If you look at the history of that program, what Urban was able to do consistently was a bit of an outlier, year in and year out in the national title conversation. I understand Jim Tressel won a championship there with Ohio State. They don't have this divine birthright that they've convinced themselves that they have to be in that national conversation every year. Going down the status quo with Ryan Day, I think keeps you in that conversation. If you want to depart from him, that's fine. Your prerogative. I've heard Mike Vrabel talked about. We don't know how that's going to work out in the college ranks. I'm just saying it's a whole new world. You have a proven commodity. Maybe you'll change your tune if he puts in a good performance against Penn State. It's not like I don't understand where they're coming from. I just think use history as an indicator. Mac Brown has proven to 2 different schools. You want to push me out the door? You better be pretty damn sure about what you have to replace me.
Yeah, I don't know who the hot young coach is, right? If you're talking about replacing Ryan Day with hot young coach.
I don't think he's not hot young, even though he dyes his hair a lot. Signetti.
That's the only one. And was he 60?
His hair is 20.
Going to Turkey?
No, not Turkey. No, he's just got, matte black finish on that thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's old, so.
His hair is darker than yours. And you have a sheen. He's just matte black.
It is all natural, by the way. We don't die here on the CanesInSight podcast. Although I haven't seen your haircut still. This is the famed $100 haircut. You got a second haircut after getting the first one.
Was it a good hair? I get a haircut every 2 weeks.
Really?
Every 2 weeks.
Don't the president say you have to do that because then your appearance isn't really changed? Wasn't there a president that said that?
I changed my appearance quite a bit, but I don't know which president said that. But I'm sure there's some validity to that. But no, I just didn't have a good hair day.
Past 2 weeks, you start to see the change in the hair, but if it's every 2 weeks, you can't.
It's more about the beard than it is about the hair. I got to have my beard nice and tight. It gets unruly. Wife doesn't like it.
Yeah, I never had a beard. I would look like a bandit, like one of these guys that Zorro would fight in the movies.
Well, can you actually grow like a full beard?
I don't know.
It looks a little patchy.
Yeah,
because you got the 5 o'clock shadow and it's going down here. You're missing.
Like the Blazing Saddles guy with the badges. That'd be me. If
how about a nice little Ryan Day beard on you?
It's like Eminem's beard, like that, like the painted on kind of beard.
Ohio State is trying to go from.
That's what Juan Manuel Ventura says. Look, is Ryan Day finishes his beard with dark and lovely.
What I don't like is Ryan Day denied it. Like, you want to go a little touch of gray, that's fine. He goes like full black on that thing, and he tries to play everybody like an idiot. Don't lie to me like that.
All right, people ready to crank it up here?
Yeah, wrestling. God, I'm sorry. I've just been in a daze over here because I realized Logan Ryan dropped 17 against Florida State last week, and he hit 5 threes against them, and I'm a little concerned. St. Leo Star.
We got you know what? Let's talk a little about it. We got to do a whole basketball preview show, Pete, coming up soon. But I got to pull up my man Breeze's scouting report here on CanesInSight.com for free. And where are you going to get this kind of analysis? Look at this.
Hold on. I actually had it open on the other tab, and he says it right here. Don't leave Logan Ryan open.
This is my favorite. Look at this. The Lions like to go 4-out high sets a lot, but they also like the popular Euro ball screen continuity. They're going to set a lot of ball screens and space and shoot threes. Miami might disrupt them with their trapping defense and not relying on help. Miami should stay home on shooters, limit the catch and shoots, and make guys go one-on-one and have to finish. Where are you getting this level of Miami Hurricanes exhibition basketball breakdown than the young Lions, Trenton Breeze, on CanesInSight.com?
St. Leo Lions defense. Last season, the St. Leo Lions gave up an average of 84.4 points per game. Not unlike our defense this year.
Still not sure how I feel about this whole thing.
What the whole thing?
I mean, he's incredible at what he does, but then I have to remind myself he's but a boy.
You know, he has the innocence of a child, and the passion, the exuberance. I mean, look, he has not been jaded by years of the Canes being terrible. You know, to him, he liked the Canes, and now as he's coming of age, the Canes are dominant. So
he's never known the Canes to be good.
You can't be jaded if you never saw them.
He's never known them to be good.
So he's always had the hope because he stayed with the team, and now he's being rewarded.
305 says Pete was a boy at one point.
I'm not.
Yes,
I'm just saying treetop view on the whole thing. I'm still trying to work up how I feel because he's a wunderkind, but he's still a boy.
If I see this guy talking about the election on the Le Batard show and you take him from us, I'm going to be very upset.
No. I think come next Tuesday, we're sticking to sports.
All right. Well, we're sticking to sports entertainment with some wrestling talk here. Pete, fire us up with the wrestler of the week. Who's going first?
You tell me.
All right. I'll go first here with one of my favorite wrestlers in years, in decades, and that is Charlotte Flair, the queen herself from the Queen City. We're in North Carolina, right? So we got to keep it North Carolina. Obviously, Charlotte Flair from the Queen City. I think when people think about women's wrestling, they associate it with the new era of wrestling, right? That's like the modern wrestling thing. It's not what we grew up with women wrestling and doing all these things. Charlotte Flair is the definition of an old school wrestler. I never watch a Charlotte Flair match and think I'm watching some kind of performance. I think I'm seeing a fight with her intensity. You know, she has a nice presentation, very classy, but when she goes in the ring, she is a dog. That fight, the match with Nia Jax, they started scrapping in the ring, legit.
Yeah,
punching each other.
She kept the receipts.
Potatoed. She's got that old school mentality with the new school look and the fact that she's a woman doing all these things. So Charlotte Flair, salute to you for keeping that NWA vibe, that intensity in wrestling. On the shelf right now with the torn ACL. Looking forward to seeing her come back. Is she going to be doing the same acrobatics? Is she going to switch to a more ground-based style? We'll see. But excited to see Charlotte Flair back in the squared circle. One of my absolute favorites.
For my money, the greatest women's professional wrestler of all time. And if you want to talk about character in terms of presentation, up there. Being able to get legitimate heat as a heel, really good in that regard. Matches, for my money, out of the 5 top women's professional wrestling matches of our lifetimes, she's got 4 of them. You have Bayley, Sasha from NXT TakeOver in that top 5, and then you can mix and match. There are 2 Rhea Ripley matches that Charlotte had that were phenomenal. There was a Falls Count Anywhere match against Sasha that Charlotte had on Raw to close. I think that was actually in Charlotte, North Carolina. That was great. And I think for my money, the greatest women's wrestling match that I've ever seen, when you include the spectacle of it all, Asuka, the undefeated streak, WrestleMania. Nobody had Charlotte winning that match. It was great drama throughout. The match delivered. Charlotte actually pretty new still to professional wrestling. She decided to do that in her mid-20s, and obviously incredible genes, but she is just phenomenal in the ring, knows who her character is probably going to tie her dad. That'll be the next big storyline for Charlotte, because she's already won multiple world championships, and she's sneakily in that conversation the same way that John Cena is. Can't say enough good things. And even though she's usually playing a heel and her presentation is a little stuck up, I happen to know her to be one of the nicest people that you could ever meet in that industry. Really stand-up person. So co-sign Charlotte Flair, my favorite women's professional wrestler of all time.
I like your top 5. You can also talk about her against Becky Lynch at the all-women pay-per-view.
You take the biggest women's superstars of this era, they all had their best match against Charlotte.
Ronda too. Ronda had some really good matches with
Ronda,
Charlotte.
Becky, Sasha, Rhea, Nia, best matches with Charlotte Flair. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah, both Rhea matches. I thought the Rhea match last year was the match of the year, men or women. The first one in the Thunderdome with
that WrestleMania where Charlotte decided that she was going to go for the NXT strap. If that had fans there, that might be considered the better match of the two. That was a great match.
Very physical. I mean, the grunts and groans, the Monica Seles style grunts and groans with no fans.
She can sell. She's
all
great.
Kinds of feelings with that one.
She's awesome. She sells the way that her dad did. I understand what you're doing there, but she is just a top of the line sports entertainer in every sense of the word. Honestly, take gender out of it. At doing what you're supposed to do in the ring, generate heat, sell, be able to complete move sets and get the audience sucked in, and being able to captivate an audience with pure storyline, which she did and showed when she main evented WrestleMania with Becky and Ronda, putting both of them over by being a part of it, despite people saying she shouldn't have been a part of it. When she is active, she is top 1% of the industry, men or women. She's great. Can't say enough. I feel like she's my wrestler of the week.
And she married to a Latin man, loves Latin men, not putting them down constantly like on this show. But I digress. Give us your wrestler of the week.
My wrestler of the week is Roddy Piper, because he did so many great things in the territory days out of the Carolinas. Great rivalry with Ric Flair. Obviously main evented WrestleMania 1, got incredible heat with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff as they made WrestleMania a spectacle. Had really great matches in the ring that people don't really talk about. He made Bret Hart. Bret Hart was getting launch padded, and Vince McMahon handpicked Roddy Piper to help make him a star. It was one of those great divided crowds. Great match between Roddy and Bret Hart. Roddy was always such a hot rod on the microphone. So could get over wherever you put him. Was a great interview, great promo guy, convincing heel. Great anti-hero, really cool dude. And also, personally, saved my dad's life from a coked out Jimmy Snuka. My dad, back in the old days, of the territory days, you could sign up to be a driver for wrestlers. So my dad got to meet Ric Flair and all these guys. I've said this story on the Levitard show, but for those that don't know, my dad used to drive around all these territory wrestlers. One day he was out with Flair, Roddy Piper, Jimmy Snuka. My dad got a little comfortable. Alluded to the fact that the sport was predetermined, was fine with Rick and Roddy. Jimmy Snuka, as you've known him to be in his life, rage problems, capable of really injuring other folks to a permanent end. And he charged at my dad pretty good. And Roddy Piper said, nah, man, you can't do that. Mike, get out of here, man. So Roddy Piper might have saved my dad's life from a coked out Jimmy Snuka. So, and tragic to see him go. Huge fan of what he did on It's Always Sunny. Great movie star, too. One of the first transcendent wrestling superstars. They Live holds up. Maybe some of you have recited the line of come here to chew bubblegum and kick some ass and I'm all out of bubblegum. That actually came from Roddy Piper, and no, it wasn't a wrestling promo. It was from They Live. Huge star. Wish he was still around, because he is a voice that is sorely missed. Roddy Piper, never a body guy, not one of these guys. He would annoy and get under people's skins with his mouth. He was just so great. And we don't really have enough people that are like Roddy Piper that can get over with their words, suck you into the story and the performance, and make stars out of people with their heat. Not many people can do what he did. He was one in a million.
No, and Big in the Oregon Territory too. I know my dad used to watch him as well up there. Pete, pull up the quote from the ultimate mark here in Miami right now. Good name we might be familiar with. While you're pulling that up, the match against Goldust, unbelievable as well.
Dude, I forgot about that. That was a WrestleMania parking lot brawl. It was a street fight.
Yeah, Hollywood
Hollywood
backlot brawl.
That was great.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Great feud.
So here we go. Shout out to Gio with this. So this is Mario Cristobal, and I was at this, or you, when he went to College Game Day. You know, obviously enemy territory. Mario Cristobal is the biggest heel in the building when he shows up there. He said he felt like, hey, pull it back. I gotta read it, Pete. So he said he felt like Roddy Piper walking in with everybody trying to kill him when he walked into that College Game Day atmosphere. So shout out from Coach Cristobal. Here's a quote here. 5:45 a.m. It was awesome walking in. You feel like Roddy Piper, man. Everybody wants a piece of your ass, and you gotta be ready to throw.
That's great.
Mario Cristobal.
That's fantastic. I imagine a lot of people were out to hurt him. Hey, if I ever get hurt or someone that I know gets hurt in an accident, where should I go?
Oh, look at you, man. Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. Look, let's go back to, by the way, we talked about it right up front, but Islas Canarias, the final verdict, was the family pleased with the meal that she brought home?
Oh, it was fantastic, dude. I got the express delivery on the DoorDash, and I had an amazing. I had the frijoles negros, the mariquitas that they had were fresh and crispy. I actually thought the mariquitas, they bring this huge aluminum tray, and I thought it was going to be the mariquitas. The mariquitas were in something else. I opened up that huge aluminum tray, and it was my Bisayne Panisado. I couldn't believe it. It was massive. The food was so good. I'm still eating leftovers from it. Really great. We talk about their croquetas, which is Croqueta County, the best croqueta in the world at Isla. But made me want to probably drive home today and make a little pit stop at that dining pavilion in Dadeland. And can't thank them enough for their support.
There you go. And if you want to get the shirt, croquetacounty.com. So going to the song of the week, switching gears, we're keeping it in North Carolina with at least, you know, my rest.
My song too. I'm keeping it in North Carolina. So
we got the same vibe for once. We usually kind of clash a little bit, go different directions. We kind of kept it.
I'm back on the North Carolina train. Like
so I will start because mine's a little older, from 2003. This is my college era. Little Brother, outstanding, independent kind of rap outfit, led by Ninth Wonder, who paid his respect to Andre the Giant as the 8th wonder of the world. So he called himself Ninth Wonder.
I thought that was China.
That's what I thought. So he didn't have to change. He should have been the 10th wonder if he was really being real. But Ninth Wonder, outstanding producer, one of the best producers of the 2000s, came out with this album here with Fonte and Little Brother, Durham-based group. Ninth Wonder actually teaches a music class at Duke University. So keeping the Duke tie-ins here, the Durham-based group. Brought kind of that Kanye West style of soul sampling, chopping up the soul. It came out about the same time as Kanye West in early 2000s, but it was a different type of soul sampling. There wasn't as much singing. It was more chopped up. It was more dusty. It was more, you know, kind of like a DJ Premier type, but more samply. Unbelievable sound. He went out to great things after this, but his peak was Little Brother, The Listening. I had the song For You from Little Brother that to me is my favorite on that album. The whole Listening album, 2003, holds up. It's been a while. It's probably about the same time the Canes were in the top 5, about 21 years.
So first time we were in the top 5 in October, which is a bit of a trick because we were in the top 5 in November in 2017. But this is the first time we've been in the top 5 in October since 2005. Been a while. That was pre-Trenton Breeze.
That was pretty
I will check that album out. I wasn't all that familiar with it, so thank you for putting that on my radar. I'm going with a North Carolina MC myself and J. Cole. J. Cole. Now, Pete, you're not a J. Cole guy?
I vomited when you sent me this.
What's your issue with J. Cole? Because a lot of
he's a whiny rapper. He sounds like he's whining when I hear him, and I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that. But I'm just not into it. I'd rather the mumble rappers than the whiny rappers.
Well, we fundamentally disagree on all of that, but I don't necessarily think he's a whiny rapper. If you think he's a whiny rapper, please revisit 2014 Forest Hills Drive. For my money, one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time.
Matthew Owen agreeing.
2014 was a great year for hip hop. A lot of transcendent albums. This one, I still revisit this final, top to bottom, a great album. This was J. Cole, for me, at his absolute best. This cemented him as a hip-hop headliner. Now, I'm not thrilled with what he's done after. I think you can parse what he's done after, and I think he failed to live up to this album, but this album still holds up. I, like many, were disappointed to find out that he bowed out of the Drake-Kendrick thing, but as Kendrick being my favorite MC of all time, I really am totally cool with him taking shots at Drake. The J. Cole stuff would have been hard because I would have been like, guys, stop fighting. I don't think he's a whiny rapper, but I'm going with Fire Squad out of that album. No Role Models is what everybody else picks. There are not a lot of songs that go hard, which is maybe why you think he's a bit of a whiny rapper. Fire Squad, one of those songs that does go hard on this album. From North Carolina, proud to be there, proud to be from that area. So given that we're playing an opponent from Durham, I wanted to give North Carolina some love and revisit some hip hop, because I haven't been doing that too much lately here on this show. So great album, not a whiny rapper. And for my money, there might be a few outliers, but mumble rap sucks. Just flatly. Mumble rap is not good.
We're going to have to disagree with that.
Do you like mumble rap?
I don't know much about it. If someone's name starts with Little or Young and it's not Jeezy or Wayne, like after those guys.
There's so many consonants now in these names from these SoundCloud rappers, and they're all mumble rappers. And it's just like, we're not, if you think that we're in a bright spot for hip hop, you're just young.
I didn't say we were.
Well, you're taking out J. Cole, which is like
J. Cole is my era too. What are you? So you're talking like I don't like.
No, you're touting mumble rap over J. Cole.
I don't listen to his music. Like,
is Future because does Future kind of
he's like the final boss when it comes to mumble rap.
All right, well,
everything is derivative of Future, who took that style and brought it to the mainstream in ways that were more effective than anybody else had tried.
Future is great. I can play it in the car with the kids because the lyrics, the bad words, I can't understand them.
Mumbling them.
Young Thug is the best musician of my generation.
I like Young Thug. Not a fan of his off-field antics. Hope whatever happened there gets figured out. Great albums.
Free YSL.
Not going to co-sign on that, but
is YSL the one that's on the murder down here?
I think we should just stay away from it personally.
Well, that's OTF. That's it's a little dark.
YSL has their own problems. It's well documented.
Dirk he was the Fed just got him. He was in Broward prison there, but that was a quick thing. I think they sent him across the country.
I like Young Thug though. I like his music, but generally I'm out on mumble rap. It all kind of sounds the same.
I'll have to send you some good stuff.
We're too old, man. They came out with
You sent me Brittany Howard today, and that was like, whoa. Brittany Howard's a former front person for Alabama Shakes.
Oh, yeah.
Just a crazy good voice.
Yeah. Alabama Shakes, that sounds like a minor league football team in Birmingham.
Alabama Shakes is good. Also, Pete is on that. Look at that.
No, Pete doesn't know. Like, Pete's whole musical algo now is just what's on EAFC. We've lost Pete to this video game. We had a really humming dynasty where he built Liberty to a national champion status, and he just left us at the altar.
Sometimes when you reach the mountaintop, it just doesn't feel the same.
Stop. You're ducking Connor. Stop it.
Yeah, listen, the mountaintop was reached.
You're not the mountaintop. Connor's the mountaintop. You ran.
Let me send you my gospel playlist for the Liberty games. I got some good stuff. I'll send it to you.
The Reverend Montgomery over there, he culture wasn't exactly gospel music after he left.
How is your EAFC thing going?
It's going well.
Yeah, you're one of the best players in the world, right?
Well, some would say in a certain mode of the game.
Did you make an influencer quit? What's the story there?
Yes, I did. That's not the game mode that I'm ranked in. It's a different one. It's I don't want to bore our guests here. We talk enough wrestling.
All right. Well, I think we got
all the brownie points that the favor that you try to curry with the audience by not putting yourself out there with your true opinions on Miami football players. I think you burned up all that goodwill with your mumble rap takes.
That's the story with me.
I mean, we had Pete off air emotionally defending Tom Gore on Monday.
I miss Tom Gore. Miss his smile. Miss his bull rush. Miss everything about him.
We'll see him in a couple of weeks when Georgia Tech comes to town.
When are you coming back into you rage quit, not just our online dynasty, but you rage quit the group chat. I had to add Chris Whittingham to it so we can have a foil.
Well, listen, Woody's the man. I hope that he can really uphold my legacy in there. He's probably a lot more likable than I am in the
Not
chat.
really.
But yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back one day once the utopian society's, ready to just be broken up again.
He's waiting for a loss so he can come in and just say, I told you so, and everything else.
Yeah, not the brand that you've cut out for yourself here on CanesInSight, where it's all puppy dogs and ice cream. It's crazy. There is a different Pete, folks. A Pete that is a villain in the group chat because he keeps it too real.
They saw when he was on Twitter. He on a Twitter rampage for about 2 years.
People will know when I'm not happy with something publicly. I've done it before. But there's nothing to complain about. 8-0.
Yeah, really. There've been a lot of complaints for someone that says that there's nothing to complain about. My God, pal, you got a ton of complaints.
Everything that I was complaining about publicly before ended up being the truth.
Yeah,
and it's played
out
that
you,
way.
Who's...
And it's the Super Bowl this week because it's Manny Diaz week.
Okay, everything that you complained about has come true. All right, I'm gonna check those Heisman odds again.
Thank you for joining us. Remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. Check out Storm Sessions, which Aaliyah Bethea just dropped. Check out when's the next oral history dropping?
This Friday, and this one's going to be hella awkward.
Oh,
this one might be the oral history episode that the whole project is remembered for. And maybe one day I'll do an oral history on the making of this oral history episode because I've had a week, brother, to get this one across the line. And quite frankly, I'm not sure how this one's going to land with all the working parts there. A lot of egos, a lot of different sides to what went down here. If you're a fan of local radio, the podcast drops Friday. You finally get a better idea. I'm not going to say answers because there are multiple sides to this story, but you get a better idea of why Mark Hochman and Dan Le Batard and Sue got separated. So we cover that part of our history, and that will lay the foundation for the following episodes, which is our tumultuous, iconic run that Joe Tessitore even remembered over at ESPN. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that. Say hi to Pete at the St. Leo game.
Well, let's give love to independent wrestling as well.
I was gonna tell you. I have the stuff that you sent me ready.
Yeah, my buddy Domino. He is wrestling, and it's now in a brewery that has AC, which is deeply appreciated. CCW, you might have seen clips of AJ and Big Justice wrestling at CCW shows. Domino is a champion, the people's champion. They have put this man over. I happen to know the real life Domino, and he's put in work here. If you haven't gone to the shows, and I know that Channel 7 did something on this, Miami Herald did something on this, Domino was featured on the front page of the Miami Herald. There is a great independent wrestling scene here in the local market. We know that Gangrel is one of the head bookers for this promotion, and he's a Miami Hurricanes fan. He actually was Domino's main instructor. So Bash at the Brew 46, I'll be out there rooting on my boy Domino. Hope to see other people's support because this is the first time that one of these shows haven't had a Miami conflict here in quite some time. So I'm going to go rep my boy who's already repping some hardware there on his shoulder. Already a champion in 1 year of hard work. It's great to see his hard work be rewarded there. And these shows are a really good time.
Drop the link in the chat. Promo code Domino. You get a discount there. So support local wrestling, support some Canes fans. And yeah, keep this party going.
Yeah.
Be November to remember here.
Pete, come back in the chat. Hop back in.
Hop back in.
Hop back in, Pete.
Hop back in.
Here. I'm in the
Can I get your commitment? Rejoin the chat.
No.
How about Miami goes 3 and out for the fourth time in their last 84 drives? I
think it's for the best. I think it's for the best. I think it's for everyone involved. That
you got to come back to one of the chats, and you got to come back to the dynasty.
I'm in the Saudi Professional League chat.
A rough one. Rough day for you and the agenda.
Well,
did you see there was a PK that I saw? Did you miss it?
Yeah, we don't need to talk.
I know
about
someone missed it.
We don't need to talk about that right now.
There were two Petes. There were two Petes.
It's Riyadh season, baby.
Two Petes.
Go Canes.
Go Canes. Pete, hop out.